guys? It's Phil the MMA Dude back with the Split Decision Podcast, episode number 44, here with my always brilliant co-host, the Fight Geek. Fight Geek, how you doing today, bro?
Doing excellent, man. Still pumped up after that fight card last night. How are you?
Doing very well. I'm still coming down from the UFC 244 card from last night. That was crazy. We're going to jump into that. Here's what's on tap today, folks. First, we're going to jump into a UFC 244 recap. After that, we're moving on to the UFC Moscow Preview and picks. And then finally, my favorite section, listener questions and more. So, Fight Geek, let me get the show off. Started with a question for you regarding the main event. So, Jorge Masvidal obviously defeated Nate Diaz via TKO at the end of round 3. It seemed to be an awkward moment in that Nate seemed wiped down. He seemed ready to go physically for the 4th round, and just before the 4th could start, the doctor called it. Did you think that it was a premature stoppage, or did you agree with it?
You know, great question. I did think it was premature in the moment. I'm not sure if I was caught up in the moment. Obviously, we all wanted to see that, decided, within the cage. But in retrospect, I think he had upwards of 25 stitches there. The fact that he has a lot of scar tissue over that right eye, it's been well documented. It cuts open pretty easily. I do think, from the letter of the law, the doctor did what he thought was right. But in the moment, I thought it was ridiculous not to let it go. But in the best interest of the fighter, sometimes it's, not exactly what we're looking for. But I guess what I'm saying is, in the moment, no, I wanted to see that fight go on, but I think it's justifiable somewhat, the morning after.
Yeah, I agree with just about all of that. I was very frustrated in the moment. It does sound like the cut was fairly substantial. I still think, given the circumstances, BMF belt, Nate Diaz is, he takes damage. That's who he is. I think
absolutely. Yeah, it was anticlimactic to me. I was really...
Definitely.
Especially because of the way the fight was playing out, and I think that the doctor stoppage is going to be the narrative that everybody latches onto when Jorge Masvidal looked amazing.
Absolutely.
He was in control that whole fight. I was so impressed with how he was kind of knowing when to push the gas and then knowing when to step back. Obviously, he landed that head kick. I think it was his knee that split Nate open. Just did a lot of great things in that fight. Nate had a couple moments, but even when they would scramble on the ground and stuff like that, I think Jorge was still, never in any real serious danger. So I don't want the narrative to get, changed all around to the stoppage, because Jorge was winning that substantially. I had him up 30-27 personally.
Yeah, I saw that. I thought that Nate had won one of the rounds. Now, I think that was the third. But, guys, look, I admit it. I maybe had a drink or two. Okay? So, I did think it was 2-1, but I got a lot of pushback on that. I have not had a chance to rewatch the fight. I thought Nate had maybe won the third, but it sounds like that's an issue.
I thought Nate, and I think it was actually the second.
Okay.
I thought Nate won the, first half of the round, maybe 2/3 of the round, but then Jorge had came back and in the later portions of that round stole it, I thought. So,
okay.
But it wasn't like this one-sided landslide. It was, Jorge was definitely in control and definitely winning, but Nate is always dangerous in that situation. But, it looked like it was going to be tough sledding for him from that point.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this. First and foremost, do you think that the doctor's stoppage changed the outcome, as in would Nate Diaz have won? That's question number 1. Question number 2 for you is, what's next for Nate and Jorge? Obviously, Nate has expressed interest in an immediate rematch. Dana somewhat shut that down. Conor McGregor wrote a tweet saying he wanted a 3-piece Minnesota with a side of chicken. Aimed at Masvidal. What's next for them? And first of all, do you think it would have changed the fight outcome had the doctor not intervened?
I do not. I think that Masvidal was going to win that fight, whether it was by stoppage or one-sided decision. I do believe he was going to win that fight. We don't know. This is MMA. Anything could have happened, and that is, I think, where we all feel somewhat robbed because the Diazes are somewhat notorious for, snatching a victory away from, an adverse situation. So I think there was a little intrigue left on the table, but for the most part, we saw who is going to win that matchup. I picked Masvidal in a fight similar to that. I thought it would look a lot like Conor versus Nate 2.
Yep,
I
you
think
said
it
that. You
did
did
look
say
like
that.
that fight in ways, but I just think that Masvidal's a little bigger, a little stronger, and obviously has much better cardio than Conor had at that point. And he did not look like he was slowing down at all, in my opinion.
No, he definitely did not. So okay, really quickly, who? Let me word the question this way: Who is next for Jorge Masvidal? Do you see him taking on Kamaru Usman versus the Usman Covington winner? Do you see him possibly fighting McGregor now that McGregor's put this out, or do you see that immediate rematch that Nate's calling for that Dana seemed less interested in?
If I were him, I would certainly hold out for the winner of Usman versus Colby. I think there's big time storyline if Colby finds a way to win that. Obviously, the
Yep.
former friends, that would be a massive fight. I think he certainly deserves it coming off of what we've seen. I think there's absolutely no question that Masvidal is the best version of himself as a fighter today.
Oh yeah.
It's been a long career. He's picked up the tricks of the trade and the skills over the years. He's very, very good now. Um, Till, actually, not to segue, but Till actually looked a lot better, obviously, getting a win over Kelvin. And now that win just looks better, as Till starts to, get back on the horse. Askren, 5-second knockout, and then the BMF belt. This has been a hell of a year for Masvidal. I think he's a no-brainer, 2019 Fighter of the Year. So I think it has
over Adesanya. That's the one person that has a big argument against him.
I would say so. Yeah, I know Adesanya has the belt, but
And 3 wins.
And 3 wins, but they're not quite the same wins notoriety-wise. I think obviously accolade-wise, Izzy had an amazing year, but I think in the public eye, the ESPN era, I think Masvidal has kind of won the year in MMA. But it is
Yeah.
a two-horse race between them, no doubt. And if you were to be able to turn around and have another, a title shot in early 2020, I think that makes all the sense in the world.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so moving on. Are we ready to quickly move on? And we'll get back into the main event in the questions, but we ready to move on for now?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, so Darren Till versus Kelvin Gastelum. So glad you brought this up. I recall picking Darren Till and getting a lot of sass and mockery from you, Fight Geek. But
Well,
Till
I
did
think,
pull it out.
Kelvin didn't show any of the inside striking, the ability to get inside, or the tenacity he showed against Izzy. So first of all, I thought that was a very flat performance by Kelvin.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was a smart performance by Till. You could clearly see he was still a tad gun shy, but as the fight went on and he kind of felt his way through it, he started to loosen up a bit. And as he started to loosen up, you started seeing him land those long, straight, hard punches that he's kind of notorious for. I wish he would have used his legs a little more. I mean, it seems like he could have implemented them from far away. His legs looked huge in that match. I mean, physically, he looked great at that weight. Thought his cardio looked okay. I think it was more of Till needed that win and really was smart about it, and Kelvin just seemed flat to me. So, yeah, I picked that one wrong, but I don't think that was your typical Kelvin Gastelum in there.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. Okay, let me ask you this quick question before we move on. Darren Till is true or false? He's going to have he's going to have better results at 185 than he did at 170.
True.
Wow. So do you think he can win the belt then? Because he got a title shot at 170.
Well, that's true, but the best fighter he ever beat at 170 is Cowboy Cerrone, right?
Yeah.
I would say relative to the division, he's already beaten, an elite.
Well, Wonder Boy. So I mean, Wonder Boy.
Wonder Boy. That was a razor close fight.
Yeah,
there's almost no winner in that fight in a way.
Right.
So he didn't implement his will and dominate Wonder Boy and put that head on his mantle. So I do think 185 will be a little better for him, especially the fact that he's just enormous for that weight.
Yeah.
I'm looking for him to do good things, and I think he's learned some lessons with some really hard losses. And if he's able to kind of balance being smart and technical with kind of the fighter's heart that he has, I still think he has elite potential for sure.
Yeah, by the way, one thing I want to touch on really quick about that fight. It was a split decision. One of the judges gave it 30-27 to Kelvin. That is just absurd. That's some of the worst scoring I've ever seen. Till clearly won that fight, and it's an insult it was a split decision, let alone 30-27.
Yeah, I agree. That's wild. That's completely wild.
Yeah, so what's next for Darren Till at 185? Who would you like to see him face?
185 off the top of my head. Who you got pulled up there? I can't even think of that division off the top of my head.
I can pull that up right now.
Izzy,
but Yoel was thrown out, and Darren somewhat comically in the post-fight press conference shot down. I think he said something like, "Fuck that guy, he's a fucking beast. I don't want to fight him." About Yoel, which was very funny. But he was very honest about it. I also thought it was interesting. Did you catch that Darren admitted that he was so nervous in the tunnel going up to the fight against Kelvin that he said he wanted to fake an injury to avoid going in. And
I mean, that's what I was talking about with, kind of dealing with some, he was obviously tentative to start that fight. He was brutally stopped the last time out. Yeah. This was a do or die kind of moment for him. And you could see, I think the same post-fight interview you're talking about where he teared up and got a little emotional. You could see that, he wants to be an elite fighter. He wants to be at the top of the food chain. He doesn't want to be hovering around, mid 15-ish, So this was a big one for him. And, we'll set up a big fight going forward. Who knows off the top of my head, but...
Want me to read them off? Okay, so we got Izzy the champ. Number 1, contenders Whitaker. 2, Costa. 3, Romero. 4, Gastelum. 5, Jared Cannonier. 6, Hermanson. 7, Jacare.
I think Cannonier makes a lot of sense, especially if Yoel is going to get a title shot somehow.
Yeah, but is that what you're hearing? I'll be honest, I'm not hearing much from my sometimes sources. I'm hearing nothing. But
well, Israel has been chirping about it on social media, leading everyone to believe that he wants to fight Yoel. Yoel has made a video back to Israel saying, "Don't mention my name." Have you not?
I've seen all of that. I've seen all of it, but I think
so. It seems like Izzy is either going to get a Whitaker rematch or Yoel because Costa's out.
That's what I was going to say. I actually believe, and I have no evidence, I believe that they're looking to make Whitaker Izzy 2 immediately. Because,
I agree, but...
Whitaker cut off his speaking tour,
For Israel's sake, he's probably less excited to fight Whitaker again than put Yoel on his resume. For instance, Whitaker uses his 2 wins over Yoel as kind of like the gold standard to prove what kind of champion he is. Yoel's never truly been stopped or beaten. All of his losses are kind of, really tight decisions. So I think Israel at this point is more interested in Yoel than a Robert rematch. So that's just my 2 cents from, what I've been kind of following along. Does that make sense to you?
It makes perfect sense to me in terms of what's best on a resume. But I am an Izzy Adesanya fan, and if I was a diehard Izzy Adesanya fan or his coach, I do not like him versus Yoel. I can't think of a worse matchup stylistically. Take that Whitaker
And
rematch.
I personally believe that statement you just made is exactly why Izzy wants that fight.
Which I respect the hell out of that, by the way.
Right. Well, that's the kind of fighter and champion he says he wants to be. He's calling out the scariest guys. He's calling out Yoel and John Jones. I mean,
can you imagine if Izzy gets a stop against Yoel? What will they say then? Nothing.
Well, then he could be the number 1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world, Yeah. So, and I think he wants that. He's in his prime. He realizes that if he's going to build that legacy, you do it right now.
Yep.
So.
Absolutely. Okay, are we ready to move on to Wonder Boy versus Vicente Luque?
Yes, amazing fight. A lot of great fights on UFC 244.
Yes, it really did. The card really did deliver. I would say again, the only spot of rain was I thought the anticlimactic ending to the main event. Other than that, what a great card that delivered.
Right, but that was so MMA for a card to end like the bad BMF belt to be decided by a doctor is just so MMA.
Yeah, it is. That is so MMA. That's true. Wonder Boy looking great against Vicente Luque. I got this pick wrong. I admit it. I chose Luque. And in hindsight, I don't know why. I mean, hindsight's always 2020, right? But in
Well, yeah,
hindsight, it's obvious that Wonder Boy would win, in my opinion. He's technical, and I didn't get it
way
right.
too technical. I
Way
think
too
Luke
technical.
showed against Perry and some of his last fights that he's a come forward, kind of gritty striker. And seeing Wonder Boy lose to Pettis in kind of a gritty fashion, I could see why you would lean that way. But I just thought that Wonder Boy would be way too technical, which I think showed. But still not a big fan of Wonder Boy with his hands down. He was eating hooks, I
Yeah.
thought he was there to be had for a knockout. So I'm not sure that Wonder Boy's. It was a great performance, don't get me wrong, but I do think that he's going to struggle against some guys with that style at the very top still. Not sure what we learned other than, just a good win for Stephen Thompson.
Yeah, what do you think of? I'm looking at the rankings now, and this is obviously, guys, these rankings have not been updated since 244, but Wonder Boy number 9 beating Vicente Luque number 14. I'm looking up, and I'm thinking, what do you think of Wonder Boy versus Leon Edwards if Woodley versus Edwards doesn't happen at 246? I know that's a big rumor.
No, I know this is a question later, but I think that Lawler versus Wonder Boy makes all the sense in the world now.
Okay. Okay.
So, and if not,
I like that. I don't dislike
yeah,
that.
I think that makes a lot of sense. When Robbie was the champ, there was some rumblings about Wonder Boy wanting to fight him. Neither of them are close to the title picture right now, in my opinion. So I think that's a good fight to make. And then here's a unique fight to make: Wonder Boy versus Askren potentially.
Ooh, didn't think of it. And, obviously Ben is considering retirement, but if he doesn't retire, I like that. I mean, I like that for Wonder Boy. I think Askren's a dead man walking on that one.
Right, but Wonder Boy has struggled with wrestlers in the past and never, he hasn't really struggled with them, but he can be nullified by elite wrestling. So that would be a real specialty versus specialty fight. So I think there's two fights right there that aren't super close to the title picture, but still very relevant for Wonder Boy.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, can we move on to the split decision between Derek Lewis defeating Blagoy Ivanov? What a fight! I can't believe it went all 15 minutes. They were throwing haymakers.
Yeah, this was a gritty, grueling war of heavyweights. Both guys are so tough. Both have big chins. Blagoy kind of played out the way I thought it would play, but to be perfectly honest with you, this was probably the best shape we've ever seen Derek Lewis in, and I think that's probably what won the fight.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Derek really fought tough. I think that you said it very well. If Derek Lewis if the Derek Lewis from the past few fights had shown up to this fight in his normal condition, I think he would have lost almost for sure. And the conditioning and the cardio made the difference. I think he looked fantastic. I think it was a big win. And now I can't help but look. Derek Lewis is the 5th ranked contender at heavyweight, and suddenly I'm you're gonna laugh, or people are gonna get say no way. But what about the Ngannou rematch? I know how bad the first one was. I know, but maybe it'll be different.
Francis would want that because Derek won the decision, right?
Yeah, Derek did win.
I'm
think
not
it'd be
sure
different.
that yeah, that fight still has fireworks potential, but I think everybody just has such a sour taste in their mouth from the last time that they're all shy away from it. But it may be the only fight to make in the heavyweight division. So
I was gonna say then who's next for Lewis? Because obviously, okay, there's DC and Stipe.
Well, we're gonna get down further in the card, but the guy that just destroyed Andrei Arlovsky in 30 seconds would be a nice matchup versus Derek Lewis as well.
Oh, Rosenstrike.
Rosenstrike, yeah.
Jairzinho Rosenstrike. Okay.
That guy's a unit, man. He packs some power.
All right. I don't want to get to that quite yet,
okay,
but we will. All right. So now moving on to the first fight of the main event. Kevin Lee defeats Gregor Gillespie via head kick knockout, 2 minutes and 47 seconds into the first round.
What a knockout.
What a knockout. And I will come out and say it first off, Fight Geek, I was a fair-weathered fan. I owe Kevin Lee an apology. I love Kevin Lee. I did not pick him despite rooting for him. I picked Gregor. And Kevin, I'm so sorry. Can you forgive me, Kevin? Please. I'm so sorry. You know I love you. I was worried, and I'm so glad that you knocked out that cowardly, ugly idiot who called out Anthony Pettis in another weight class. I was so happy to see not only Kevin get the win, but so happy to see Gregor get the loss.
Well, thanks for sharing. I
Sorry,
just thought
but
the clips that were on, online, you want to talk about a blood sport. You want to show somebody what fighting can look like, and how the atmosphere, the crowd reaction, the way he falls against the cage. That was a visceral knockout. That was amazing. Obviously, the biggest highlight of Kevin Lee's career, sets him up, to be very relevant in the 155-pound division going forward. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. It was an amazing knockout. Kind of came out of the blue, but that's why it was so good. It's kind of in the flow of a fight going back and forth, and he just dropped a beautiful combination, and boom. So huge performance for Kevin Lee. I don't think anybody saw that kind of performance coming. Maybe some people did. I didn't, but very impressed with him.
so I want your opinion really quickly before we move on from Kevin Lee. I want your opinion on this. I have a theory about Kevin that he does best in scenarios where he feels that he is being wildly disregarded and disrespected. That's generally where his performances that are most noteworthy come out, right? He was definitely the underdog against undefeated Gillespie. And I do think he just, when he has a chip on his shoulder, he seems to fight better, which is why I thought it was really cool that he called out Islam Makhachev after the fight. And it sounds like that fight is very much being made right now. And I'll say it right now. I know a lot of people who are especially diehard Khabib fans have a very special love for Islam. I like Kevin's chances big time. What about you?
Well, yeah, I'm not sure that that's a tough decision for him to win, but obviously I don't think that it's necessarily his back against the wall or chip on his shoulder.
No, it was before this fight, though.
But I like that fight. But what I'm saying is, going back to your other question, is I think you get mixed results with Kevin Lee because he's so young and he's so new to the game, and he's gonna have his ups, he's gonna have his downs. He's basically developing in front of us on main cards. Kevin Lee was another guy like Till who was somewhat rushed based on his potential, and been thrown in there with murderers since he was 25 years old or something,
or 24.
So, yeah, so I think that you just see the mixed bag of a young fighter who's developing in front of you, and you just saw the best version of him on last night.
Absolutely. And I was very tempted to give Kevin Lee my personal performance of the night. I know I can tell you that he won performance of the night was Kevin Lee. But then he shared it with Corey Anderson defeating Johnny Walker. And what a performance. Guys, I do not give Corey Anderson a lot of credit. I don't really like the fella. I don't give him a lot of love, but I'm here to give him some respect and some love because holy crap did he beat up Johnny Walker.
Yeah, he big dogged Johnny Walker. That was, again, this is why we watch. Whether you picked Corey Anderson or not, nobody saw that happening.
Nobody.
So that was eye-opening. It almost makes me want to see Corey Anderson versus John Jones, to be perfectly honest with you. If he could do that to a prospect like Johnny Walker, who no one's touched. Now, granted, Johnny Walker's a little wacky, I guess you could say. I think maybe he needs to take his career a little more seriously, and this may be a good wake-up call for him, that he can't be goofing around all the time. A guy will come in and just put you down, He was still smiling and laughing after he lost, So yeah. I know everybody's been real high on Johnny Walker as the next challenger for Jones. I think we can pump the brakes there. I think Corey Anderson should fight Jones next.
Really? So you think Corey should fight Jones next over Dominic Reyes?
Yes, I do. Now, after that performance, considering who he beat, Dominic Reyes beat a 185er who had been struggling. Very impressive, but Johnny Walker looked like the second coming of the 205-pound king, and he just got washed. So that's a better performance in my opinion.
Okay, very fair. So I saw the post-fight press conference this morning, And Dana did infer, without saying it directly, that Dominic Reyes would be getting the title shot over Corey. But I have to agree with you. I'm not entirely sure I even agree with that. I think that, look, and guys, I didn't like Corey.
Was that before or after Corey Anderson said that he wants to be released if he doesn't get a title shot?
It was after. It was a whole article, and Dana said, "Take what you get." And then when you run out of fights, you can go and leave. I mean, it was the most defiant, go F yourself, Dana commentary. But I don't disagree with you. I really don't. I mean, he looked amazing.
Off of merit, he's on a 4-fight winning streak, and you just beat Johnny Walker decisively. I think that warrants it.
Yep, and I would even go so far as I'm only now realizing that performance of the night went to Lee and Anderson, which is great. They both deserve the money, so I like it, but that's a little bit of like having your cake eating it too. You should have to choose one, and I was going to choose Corey Anderson just by a sliver over Kevin Lee. I mean, I thought it was an incredible performance. But anyway.
Absolutely, by far the best performance of his career. He's had some other big wins, but in this spot, headlining on ESPN, the prelims, that was a big spot to wax Johnny Walker. So
absolutely. Okay, so we'll move on. We don't have to talk about this one too long, but Shane, is it Burgos or Burgos?
I think it's Burgos.
But
I don't know.
We're
terrible at names.
Yeah, defeating Makwan Amirkhani via TKO punches. 4 minutes and 32 seconds into the last round, into the third round.
But who picked Burgos?
Are you saying that I did not? I did.
Did you? Oh, I thought you were going with Amirkhani. But Amirkhani looked great in that fight for a while, but, Shane Burgos is a very good fighter. Obviously, great pocket boxer, has some great striking, and he's tough. I think he just outlasted him.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, that was you put it well. That was a really tough performance. Sorry?
I said no, it was a fun fight.
A very fun fight and a very, very steely performance from Shane. Moving on to middleweight. Now you can get some bragging rights. Edmund Shabazian defeats Brad Tavares via head kick knockout. 2 minutes and 27 seconds in the first round. Yes, I chose Brad Tavares. You chose Edmund. So talk to me about Edmund. What a performance in middleweight. What did you think of that?
Yeah, I thought it was a great performance. I picked him. He's the younger, more athletic fighter, in my opinion. Brad Tavares has taken some damage lately. Very tough guy. Has some very straightforward skills. I just think that Edmund is younger, hungrier and more diverse, and I think you saw that play out. Obviously, he's a finisher, you saw. So, I think the sky's the limit for the kid. It was a great performance, and I kind of expected him to win, not necessarily that spectacularly.
Absolutely. Let me read off a few names above Edmund, and you can tell me who you'd like to see him fight next. Ian Heinisch, Uriah Hall, Derek Brunson, Jack Hermanson, Jared Cannonier. Any of those do it for you?
One more time.
Yeah. Uriah Hall, Ian Heinisch, Derek Brunson, Jack Hermanson, Jared Cannonier.
All of them except Cannonier. He doesn't quite deserve Cannonier yet, but I could see him fighting any of the lot.
I say, what about him versus Hermanson?
That's a big step up for him. Hermanson was just on a climb towards the title, but, if they think that Shabazian is a title contender in the next 2 or 3 fights, then sure, I could see a fight like that.
Yeah, all right. So moving on. Heavyweight. Jairzinho Rosenstrike. I think I'm really saying that wrong. I do apologize. Defeating Andrei Arlovsky. 29 seconds in the first round. I did choose Rosenstrike. I believe you may have as well.
Yeah, I did for sure. I thought he would be able to hit Arlovsky, who's been hittable recently. And with his kind of power, I just didn't see it going well. And unfortunately, I was right.
Yeah. And what were we? We were thinking about Rosenstrike versus Derek Lewis earlier, correct?
Yes, I thought that was a pretty solid matchup.
Now, what do you think about, and I like that idea, and I tweeted this yesterday, what do you think of Rosenstrike versus the Volkov-Greg Hardy winner?
But that's even going to be a higher elevated fighter. Volkov, if he beats Hardy, is third on the division? So, what's Lewis is like 5th? It might be too big of a jump, but
okay.
I think I like the Lewis fight a little bit more.
Okay, I think that's very fair. Moving on to the early prelims, we saw Caitlin Chukagian defeat Jennifer Maia via unanimous decision, 29-28 across the board. Afterwards, in the post-fight press conference, Dana White did confirm that Caitlin Chukagian is the next victim of Shevchenko. Oh, excuse me. I meant next contender who definitely has a chance and won't be badly hurt. Sorry.
Hey,
I'm so worried.
I mean, there's not a lot of intrigue there, but anything can happen.
Yeah.
It's so funny that Dana's like, he goes out of his way to, crown the next contender, but we can't get him to commit to Khabib and Tony. You know what I mean? So it's he's all gung-ho to see Caitlin Chukagian fight for a belt, but he's not for Tony Ferguson. Can someone explain this to me?
I sure as hell can't.
So, okay. But yeah, more power to her. I think she's on a couple fight win streak. She obviously has a very point fighting style, in my opinion. She's a good point fighting striker. She's a big girl. She's got some range. So she's going to be tough for the rest of the division to beat, but I don't see Valentina worrying too much about that.
Yeah, have to agree there. We'll move on really quick. Welterweight fight. Lyman Good defeats Chance Rencontre. How's it?
I'll take it.
Yeah, no, we were saying it wrong last week, so I'm trying to remember, but I'm saying it wrong again.
No, it's French, so yeah, it's probably like rencontre.
Rencontre. Yeah, via TKO punches, 2 minutes and 3 seconds into the third round. I thought Lyman Good looked very good.
Amazing. I know it's not the highest level opponent, but he looked great.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, he looked the part. He was landing everything incredibly hard. And then the way he set up the finish was brutal as well. I mean, it was just a great showing by Good. By far his best showing in the UFC.
Yup, and just kind of looking at welterweight, what do you think of him versus either Ben Askren, Gilbert Burns, or Vicente Luque?
I was going to say Luque. Him versus Luque is a war.
Yeah, so I think that's great.
Another one I was thinking about? Him versus Nico Price.
Oh, that could be fun. They're both unranked, but that could be very fun.
Lyman Good versus Nico Price would be probably like 3 minutes of chaos.
Yeah, and it would end within 3 minutes.
It would probably end with Nico reverse elbow knockout or something wild.
Yep. Okay, I like that idea as well. And then finally, last fight on the card, featherweight. Mean Hakeem Dawodu, who was really mean. Dawodu. Sorry, thank you. Mean Hakeem Dawodu defeats Julio Arce. Julio Arce. Okay, thanks, smartass. Julio Arce via split decision. I thought that Mean Hakeem, he looked pretty mean, if you know what I mean. I just had to rhyme that. I don't know.
No, I'm a big Dawodu fan. Obviously, very technical striker, tough guy, has a chip on his shoulder. Arce has looked really good. This was a great fight to kick off the card. I just think he did enough. Obviously, landed quite a bit more. Arce had a few moments, but it was just mostly Dawodu winning the striking exchanges.
Absolutely. Okay, so are we ready to now move on to UFC Moscow's preview and picks?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Okay, UFC Moscow. So a little bit of an unusual card just because it was supposed to be headlined by Junior Dos Santos versus Alexander Volkov. Dos Santos had to pull out. He was being a huge wimp, citing a bacterial infection that was eating most of his leg. What a wuss. No excuses for that. You got to show up to fight even if your leg's half eaten by bacteria. No, I'm kidding. It was very understandable. Anyways, thanks guys. We'll be here all week. But they've now moved Alexander Volkov versus latecomer Greg Hardy to the co-main event. And now they have promoted Zabit Magomed Sharipov versus Calvin Kattar as the main event. However, both fights will be 3 rounds. A little weak, not going to lie. And let me start off with this question to you. Featherweight fight, Zabit versus Calvin Kattar. Who you got?
That was a mouthful over there. But I am going to take Zabit here. I know Kattar is a tough striker. I think Zabit's just going to be a little more diverse. I'm actually taking Zabit in some kind of wild scramble to lock up a submission and beat Qatar via submission. We'll say second round sub Zabit.
Oh wow, that would be really impressive. That would be a very big win for Zabit because I was personally feeling annoyed. I remember that this fight used to be when it was originally scheduled. It was for at least a minute. It was a 5-round main event, and I think that would favor Qatar. I know that it's now a 3-round fight in Moscow. Very hard to see Zabit losing that unless things by decision, unless things go disastrously. And I see Zabit winning this by a controversial unanimous decision.
Interesting. Well, I see him winning by stoppage. I just think he's going to be super geeked for this opportunity. A little strange that it is only 3 rounds. Obviously, the circumstances leading up to both of the main and co-main are somewhat short notice, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, it is what it is. This fight's also on at like noon where I am. So,
yeah,
you take what you can get. I still think it's a very important featherweight fight, though. So.
Oh, absolutely. And then this is the last fight, at least on the card, that I feel that I need to talk about is the co-main event, Alexander Volkov versus Greg Hardy. I think we touched on it last week, but, despite how unpopular Greg Hardy is, and he should be, he does deserve a little bit of credit for taking this fight short notice, especially against someone like Volkov. I've got Volkov winning this by unanimous decision. What about you?
Yeah, I have Volkov winning this via TKO, 3rd round. I think he's going to be able to use his length, his obviously, eons more experienced than Hardy. I think he's going to be able to use his legs. I think he's going to kick Hardy, in ways that he's never been kicked, obviously. I don't think Hardy's going to understand how to get on the inside of a tall, rangy fighter who knows how to use it. He's never faced one of those yet either. And I just think he'll eventually get hit enough. And we've seen that cardio is an issue for Greg Hardy at this point in his fighting career. I think Volkov has showed that he can fight for 3 rounds easily, being a former champion. So, yeah, I just think he's going to pick apart Hardy, and eventually Hardy will fall via TKO.
All right. So anything else that we wanted to touch on before moving on to my favorite section, the listener questions?
I mean, the Ramazan Imiev fight versus Rocco Martin is interesting. You got to pick there.
I got Anthony Rocco Martin via Kayla Harrison chanting. I think that her voice is one of the loudest ones I've ever heard in a UFC arena. You can hear every single bellow from her mouth. And
even in Moscow?
I believe that she will make herself heard. I have confidence in her vocal cords.
All right. Well, I'm taking Ramazan Imiev here. I've been impressed by what I've seen by this guy. He's kind of well-rounded. Obviously, he's going to be the home team. I think it's a tough fight for Rocco Martin, so I'm taking Imiev here.
All right. Anything else?
Just scanning over right here. Jessica Rose Clark versus Pani Kianzad. You got an opinion there? Yeah.
So look, I admit it. I love Jessica Rose Clark. So I think this is a tough fight. I know Pani is a very game bantamweight fighter, but I gotta take my girl Jess Rose Clark via split decision.
Okay, I'm taking Pani Kianzad. So we disagree on one. I think that she'll actually win the decision. I think she's a little better striker. Could be wrong. Just taking a flyer on her based on some recent performances. So I'm taking Kianzad there as well.
All right. Okay. Are we ready to move on to the listener questions?
Let's do it.
All right, guys. We will be right back in a minute with listener questions. Hey guys, it's Phil the MMA Dude letting you know that this episode of the Split Decision podcast is brought to you by TotalAggressionClothing.com. Visit www.TotalAggressionClothing.com and use the promo code 46210 to receive a special Split podcast discount on all Total Aggression hats, shirts, hoodies, and more. Again, that's www.TotalAggressionClothing.com with promo code 46210. Hey guys, it's Phil the MMA Dude, back with the Split Decision Podcast, episode number 44, here with my always brilliant co-host, the Fight Geek, and we are now at my favorite section of the podcast, Listener Questions! Only one clap.
Well, I was just trying to get you to stop.
Oh, got it. Okay, that makes sense. Fine. Okay, all right. I've got a question from David Everett. You don't see it because he sent it via DM because he's cool like that. And this is at Pulp Fiction Buff. And he says, guys, love the podcast. Jeff Neal finally has a fight lined up against Mike Perry. This is a guy who beat Bilal Muhammad like he owed him money in January, and then stopped Nico Price in July, yet nobody is talking about him. And that's all in caps. David goes on to say, will Jeff be the one to finally score a knockout over Mike Perry, especially since he could possibly be a little nervous about his nose? Have a good one. What do you think?
I do not like this matchup for Mike coming back. I think it's a very tough matchup for Mike Perry. Mike Perry's too tough for his own good. This very well might be the fight that gets Mike Perry knocked out.
Ooh,
Mike Perry at 170 is not traditionally quick or fast. His big problem is that he's kind of slow.
Yeah.
He likes to trade, but other guys usually win the exchanges because they're a little quicker with the exchanges. And Jeff Neal is lightning fast. He's extremely explosive. And a guy like Mike Perry who absorbs damage as a badge of honor, you don't want to be in there with someone like Jeff Neal, distributing damage on you. I just don't see that being a great matchup for Mike Perry at this point.
Hard to disagree with that. I think Mike Perry will find a way through, but very dangerous fight.
Very dangerous.
Yep.
Obviously, when you see that on the lineup, though, everybody's going to be excited to watch that fight. But I think for Mike Perry to get back on track, he should have pumped the brakes. I think this is a little bit too dangerous of a comeback opponent, especially considering he's going to be nursing that broken nose.
Yep, absolutely. And hopefully that's fully nursed back to health, because we definitely don't want that nose getting in the way of future fights.
That takes years, in my opinion. For Rory McDonald, I think it took almost 3 full years for that nose to not be really a huge problem, and people still to this day are concerned about it.
Oh, come on. I've broken my nose in sparring before. I have.
Yeah, but have you broken it to where it's over by your ear?
No, I'm very handsome.
Well, I'm just saying. I think there's severities to how broken noses.
Fine. So you're saying that my boxing sparring isn't the same as UFC MMA?
No, and I think it was a knee that put his nose sideways.
Oh, yeah, fuck that shit. Okay.
So, tough matchup. Anyways, I got another one here from Pat Tobin.
Pat Tobin, what up, son? What up?
He says, after the success of UFC 244, will the UFC be more open to having huge fights headline pay-per-views, even if non-title fights? Will they continue to make gimmick titles for these just go back to wanting official title fights to headline these events? Good question. I do kind of feel like the BMF is a one-off. I don't think that we'll see a whole lot of that because this was kind of created by the lingo and verbiage used by Nate Diaz, who's an all-time classic character. I think it was just a very organic thing that happened at a specific, time in history. So I don't see a whole lot of that, but I do think the UFC will start to recognize that they can headline some of these cards with, just fan-friendly fights that we want to see. Doesn't always have to be a title fight, so.
Yeah, and, look, I think we have some evidence. While it's not official at all, it certainly sounds like, barring any kind of catastrophic change, that Conor McGregor is going to be headlining UFC 246. Who the opponent is, we don't know. It sounds like it's Cowboy, but Dana said as recently as last night that he was completely unsure of the matchup, of if the fight was even happening, which is usually code for stop asking for so much money, cowboy. But it sounds like they're doing a Conor McGregor headline pay-per-view right around the beginning of the new year.
I think that's still up in the air. There's some legal things that need to play out before I think the UFC wants to announce a time and date for Conor McGregor. That's just kind of what I'm sensing.
So you don't... Okay, so gun to your head right now, will Conor McGregor headline UFC 246?
No, he will not.
Interesting. That would be very humiliating for him. He's now said it will happen. If it doesn't, that would be, and you could very well be right, but I think
you got to see what is the UFC saying. The UFC's radio silent on Conor McGregor. Conor just went on a Russian PR tour that was unsanctioned by the UFC, talking about he's going to fight this date and that date. The UFC hasn't made any official statements, so I'm not expecting Conor to fight. There's way too much cloud surrounding Conor in pending investigations and litigation and things like that. Until I hear one way or another what's going on with him, I think this is all just him deflecting attention.
Yeah, and again, you could very well be right. It would be very interesting, and it's going to be interesting no matter what, because if he doesn't headline 246, that will be a new level of humiliation.
A big problem for him is that I truly in my heart think that he was hoping Diaz would win because that's a more advantageous matchup for him. I don't think he's going to, I don't think he wants to fight Jorge Masvidal. I know he just tweeted, but he's tweeted that he wants to fight 20 fighters in the last 2 years. So...
Yeah, it's so fascinating how hard he's made it to like him now. And I'll come out and admit it, guys. I was a huge Conor fan a few years ago. I really was. And I know that's not cool to admit, but, a lot of you were, and you guys are lying about it, which is fine. But I was too. And he's made it almost impossible to root for his success. Every time I picture him fighting, I hope in my head, man, I hope he gets really hurt. I hope he gets knocked out so brutally. And that's just crazy. I thought he used to be able to do no wrong. And now I despise the man.
Yeah, I can't say I disagree there. He has made it incredibly hard to root for him, in my opinion. I was a huge Conor McGregor fan as well, all the way up through the Eddie Alvarez fight. I thought he was on track to being the greatest fighter of all time. Obviously, things have changed. So until I see him back in the cage beating someone, I'm not banking on it. Let's say that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Do you have another question?
Yeah, I got one here from Fighting With Myself podcast.
Juice, what up?
Juice asks, what's the best excuse you've heard from a Diaz fan? And this is fun.
That's a good one.
I got one. Some guy was saying that Diaz was still in the fight because he hadn't even thrown up the double holstered middle fingers.
Okay, that's pretty good. I feel a little attacked, Juice. Is this directed at me? But no, I would.
Why, you making excuses for Nate?
Yeah, hell yeah, I am. The fight was too early. It was stopped too early. It's a Diaz fight. He takes damage. That's kind of what he does, and then he keeps coming. So you don't stop a Nate Diaz fight based on an eye cut.
Can I ask you one question, though, based on the action? I saw Nate Diaz heavily staggered 3 different times in that fight. One with a head kick where he took a backward step staggered, and I think 2 big overhand rights or right hooks. He kept catching that right hand right on his face. Nate was being hit even more than Nate usually gets hit, and he was being hit clean. Usually Nate is not even staggered when, I think Conor knocked him down, 3 times in the first fight?
Oh, no, in the rematch knocked him down.
Oh, in the rematch. Yeah, you're right. But Nate never staggered. He fell down and got back up.
Yeah.
So these were heavy thudding shots that were landing on Nate, and he was hurt a couple times, which I think was surprising.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to agree. I would just say, yeah, I think the best the best excuse is just that these are Nate fights that he always starts off slow and finishes off strong. And I would have loved to see the last 2 rounds. Deep down, do I think that Nate would have pulled off the win? No, I don't. But I still would have loved to see it.
Fair enough. You got another one?
Yeah. This is from Kev. That's at KevC918. He says, if you had to rank these knockouts in order from most devastating to least, how would you order them? Masvidal flying knee. I'm guessing, Kevin, you didn't specify, but we're going to have to guess that that's a reference to the Diaz fight and not the Askren one, because your other two choices are from 244, so we're going to have to guess that. Masvidal flying knee to stop Diaz. Lee head kick KO Gillespie. Masvidal KO of Till.
Okay. Masvidal KO of Askren, number 1. Kevin Lee KO over of Gregor, number 2. And then Till getting knocked out by Masvidal, number 3. Pretty easy for me.
Okay. I was just saying that okay. Yeah, I think you interpreted it correctly, saying it was Masvidal Askren reference. It's unknown.
He's basically asking what's the knockout of the year, more or less, right?
Yeah, it's the Askren one. It's the Askren one, Kev.
Yeah. And then the Kevin Lee one was more brutal than the Till one, in my opinion.
I mean, people forget Till was standing and he got slept like he was dead. I mean, he looked like
that was also
dead.
Close corners. That was like on the clinch break or like a little check hook that got him. Where this was like a combo to a head kick where Gregor was leaning down into the kick. I mean, that was a brutal, stiff as a board.
Yep, absolutely. I've got this question from Ali Ra, that's at Leg Sweep MMA. He said, would Douglas Lima give Mousasi a competitive fight at 185 or a catchweight? How do you see that fight going?
That's tough. Obviously, I think it could be a competitive fight. I think it would be more competitive than Rory versus Mousasi, but I still would take Mousasi there.
I would definitely take Mousasi. I'm not so, if I'm being honest, Ali, I'm not so sure about Douglas Lima taking these catchweight fights or even moving up in weight. I do think that welterweight is a good weight for him, and I'm not at all convinced that other weights would go well for him. I think he's that's not to take anything away from Douglas. He's one of the greatest fighters in the world at welterweight.
Agreed. And, some of the things he struggled with Askren, which was younger, and then even the Rory 1 fight, was his wrestling. I think that Gegard has shown enough acumen with his groundwork and his wrestling, and he would have the size advantage. I think that would be a way that he would be able to find a path to victory.
Absolutely. Okay, do you have another, or should I go?
Yeah, I got one from Mr. B. He actually has 2.
Mr. B!
First question, he says, who do you match the winners and losers of UFC 244 with in their next fights? So, Masvidal, I say, waits for the winner of the belt, Colby Usman. Nate, I say, fights Conor in the trilogy.
Okay, wait. You think that Nate fights Conor in the trilogy. Now, that's very interesting. Let's take that apart for a second, because we know that Conor is fighting a opponent in January. We
don't know that. We just discussed that. I told you I don't even believe that.
All right. Well, I do think. I mean, Cowboy sent him a tweet saying sign the contract. He said sign the contract already.
Is Cowboy booked to fight Pettis?
No, absolutely not.
Was that fight rumored? I thought.
Yeah, that fight was highly rumored. Absolutely.
Okay, so I don't know. I'm just he's asking for winners and losers. I'm just throwing a name out for Nate Diaz. He's not going to fight anyone other than a Conor rematch or Masvidal rematch, in my opinion.
I agree with that. I just think,
I mean, maybe you could get a Nate Diaz versus Tyron Woodley fight. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, so let me ask you this really quick. I mean, let's say Conor fights Cowboy and he wins, right? And so then he's fighting Nate. So is he just tracking down people that are on losing streaks? I just feel like that's
he's certainly only tracking down people he thinks he can beat this next fight, because he has to win.
But this would be the fight after the next fight.
I know. That's what I'm saying. So I don't see that Cowboy fight. It's not even relevant to me.
Oh my God! I couldn't have less interest. I tweeted about that. How it couldn't have been a more worthless
Cowboy
fight.
Can still beat him.
Of course. And by the way, if Cowboy that's another reason why I think McGregor Gaethje is a better option. If Conor loses to Gaethje, he still has a career.
It's excusable at this point.
If he loses to Cowboy, he better not ever show his face again.
All right, well, we got to answer Mr. B's questions. Let's quit rambling about Conor. Who do you match the winners and losers of 244 with? Okay, Masvidal, we've agreed. Winner.
We answered a lot of these already.
All right. Okay, Lewis versus, I think we said...
Rosenstrike
or Overeem. I really don't want to see Overeem fight Lewis. I don't know why. I just don't really have a palate for that one right now. Kevin Lee versus Islam Makhachev. Don't really love that matchup, but I do see it being next. I'd like a Kevin Lee versus Paul Felder match.
Ooh. I kind of like that.
And I've already made a case for Anderson to get Jones next, but if he doesn't get Jones, I could see a Lionheart matchup making sense.
I like Lionheart Anderson. I personally think that Reyes deserves the next Jones shot over Corey despite the performance.
Okay, and then who you want to see Hakeem Dawodu fight next?
Ooh, Mean Hakeem. That's a tough one. Let me see. Hold on. I got an answer for you. How about Arnold Allen, or Mirsad Bektic, either 13 or 15 featherweight?
I had someone else in mind. Name the top 15. You got them pulled up there or no?
Yeah, I do. 15 Arnold Allen, 14 Ryan Hall, 13 Mirsad Bektic, 12 Shane Burgos, 11 Calvin Kattar, 10 Josh Emmett, 9 Jeremy Stevens, 8 Hanato Moicano.
I was gonna say Andre Fili versus Hakeem Dawodu.
It looks like Touchy-Feely may have gotten pushed out of the rankings.
Well, Dawodu's not ranked yet either, so he's probably not going to get someone super high.
Yeah, I'm cool with that fight, by the way. I have no problem with that fight.
Cool. Touchy-Feely versus Dawodu would be interesting.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, let's keep it moving.
Wait. His second part of the question. Did you guys watch the PFL on Thursday? Sorry, I had to ask. Thank you for asking, Mr. B. No, I didn't, because I don't watch garbage.
Okay, thanks for your input. Yeah, I watched it.
PFL's a bunch of garbage, guys.
I tuned in and out of it. It wasn't the most exciting event I'd ever seen, but I'm starting to enjoy the season format, seeing multiple...
Stop.
Okay,
Stop
let's keep it moving.
Just wait, really quick. If anyone's saying, oh, Phil's such a casual, he doesn't like PFL. Okay, you know what? Name me one person in the PFL that could actually hold their own in the UFC. Name one person. Kayla Harrison, get the fuck out. Okay, so just sit down, everyone calling me a casual. PFL sucks.
Take it easy there, buddy.
I'm just
All right,
saying.
I got one from Shane Terra.
Shane Terra, what up?
He says, am I the only Leon Edwards fan?
Yes.
Is he the only Leon Edwards fan?
The answer is yes, you are, and bless you, and he thanks you for the support.
Well, I disagree, because I'm a Leon Edwards fan also. I'm not necessarily
Wait,
Yeah,
what?
of course. I like Leon Edwards. I think he's
Whoa, bro, can this show even continue? You're a Leon Edwards fan? What?
Well, not a fan, but I mean, I like watching the guy fight. I'm not going to...
What do you like about it?
For him over Masvidal. Well, he's very technical. He doesn't make many mistakes. He's defensive. He's athletic. He's smart. I mean, what do you mean? He has all kinds of attributes.
Oh, wait. Huh? Sorry? What was that?
Anyways, we know you don't have as refined MMA palate as I do, so I forgive you.
Shots fired.
All right, so yeah, I think Leon has a few fans, but I compare to him to a slow build that Tyron Woodley had. I think that he wins a couple more fights versus big name guys, he could really kind of turn the corner. The skill is there.
Okay, this is from Nathan. That's at N_Web1212. Do y'all think Kelvin getting destroyed by Adesanya in the 5th round of their fight affected him enough to make him super hesitant against another big striker until? Hashtag AskSplitPod. Nathan, thank you for using the hashtag and your excellent question. I personally think that, yes, it did make Kelvin a little gun-shy. We sort of touched on this a little, but Fikey, go ahead. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm not sure that it was. I think that's what made him gun shy. You know, each matchup is a little different. Obviously, versus Izzy was for the belt, so it's safe to assume that that was the most focused and best Kelvin Gastelum we may ever see. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think he had a performance like that up to there, and you know we may not see him fight like that again. Hopefully, we do because he was amazing in that fight. But I just think styles make fights. Till had a much different style than Adesanya. Maybe he just wasn't feeling as comfortable getting on the inside. Maybe the fact that it was a 3-round fight changed his strategy. Just a lot of different things that could go into that. So I'm not ready to say that Kelvin was unequivocally damaged in the 5th round of the Izzy fight, but he certainly didn't look like himself, and I just think that's because styles make fights, and Till was maybe something different than he was anticipating.
Yeah, absolutely. And this question quickly is from Jim Asoon. Jim Asoon! If y'all ain't following Jim Asoon, you better be following him. And he says, Masvidal's next fight is for the 170 strap, right? Hashtag AskSplitPod.
Yes.
It better be. We seem to agree that it better be.
Especially the way he's been looking. You know, he looks like this is the best version of himself. I'm convinced he has a chance to win the title from either of those people, so I definitely think it's time.
Agreed. And then the MMA philosopher asked, this is at SmartDan51, he said, how close to a title shot is Edmund Shabazian?
Like I think we touched on that earlier, probably 2 big wins from getting to the top 5 and then a top contender, so 3 fights minimum.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I think it's a 3-fight minimum, but I think if he can win all 3 of those in impressive fashion, I think that's accurate. I don't think it's going to go. I think 3 is the number.
Cool. All right. MMA philosopher has one more. He says, will Jorge Masvidal surpass Khabib as the company's 2nd biggest star?
And they're, of course, counting Conor.
I don't think so, based on the fact that Khabib has so much international support. I think that will always keep him a little bigger than Masvidal. But in the U.S., I think that Masvidal will be a bigger star for sure.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think that, it didn't necessarily help that 244's main event had a controversial ending. I think had it not had such a controversial ending, it would have, really taken the winner and skyrocketed them into superstardom.
Yeah.
That didn't happen. So short answer is no. I think he's going to remain with that 3rd place bronze medal.
Okay. All right, I got one here from Quinn. He says, how do I get over this hangover?
Yeah, Quinn, great question. So, listen, I've really been waiting. And, guys, sometimes I think you guys don't ask goofy enough questions. You think that we're very serious and we have to answer serious. No, please ask more of this stuff. I'm happy to answer. One of the best things...
Well, hold on. Let's be more specific. How did you get over your hangover, Phil?
Why are you assuming I had a hangover this morning? What does that infer? Okay, I did. Okay, I had a hangover. I admit it. Okay.
I had a hangover.
Well, I will admit this. If you go to a liquor store next time you're about to party for a UFC event and get the hangover. They look like 5-hour energy drinks, but they're hangover drinks. And you chug them before you start drinking or while you're drinking. They look a lot like 5-hour energies, okay? Listen to me. They work. I know it sounds crazy. They work. I'm telling ya.
I just say drink a lot of water the next morning. Hydrate.
Oh,
lots of water.
That's the worst. That is the worst advice, Fight Geek. That doesn't help. It's too late by then.
No, you need to hydrate, buddy.
No, I know, but you're gonna if you're already hungover, all the water in the world ain't gonna really help that quickly.
Get up and sweat.
Yeah, well, working out works too, but I'm telling you, Quinn, the answer is go to liquor store, buy those 5-hour energy drink looking things that are for hangovers.
You would buy the $3.99.
Oh, whatever.
Approved,
Whatever. At least they work. Whatever. Okay.
You just can't be hired by a government agency afterwards.
All right. Okay, so I want to ask Kairos MMA's question. Love this guy, but it is it's a video question, which we love. But I wanted to wait for the other questions to be asked before we jump into that one. So
okay.
Is there anything else left?
Okay, let me just double check. I did have one that came in the Split Pod DMs. It's from Larry at
Whoa!
Largo61.
I checked this. I checked the Split Pod DMs too.
Good for you. Well, you should have saw that Larry had a question for us.
I did. I just didn't want to tell you about it.
Oh, well, you have to talk about it with me on the air.
Fine.
Here we go. All right, he says he's getting his question in now. He says, Walker and Gillespie, was it all hype? What's next for them? Should Masvidal Diaz repeat? Who's next for Till? Who's next for Johnny Bones? So we'll just go in order. Walker and Gillespie, all hype, or is there some substance still there?
Walker will be back. Gillespie was a lot of that was hype. Walker will be back.
I think Walker is more hype than Gillespie.
No way, you're crazy.
Gillespie has a real wrestling base, great cardio, and I think he can still beat a lot of guys in that division. Should Masvidal Diaz rematch right now? Yes, no?
I think we can kind of all agree, like, not really.
Okay, cool. Who's next for Till?
We discussed this a little bit, but Cannonier or, honestly, Yoel.
Okay, and who's next for Johnny Bones? I think we've went over this a few times.
Dominic Reyes.
And I say Corey Anderson. So we'll see.
We disagree there.
All right, thanks for the question, Larry. Now let's just sweep them one more time. I'm looking on Instagram.
Wait, should I play the Kairos question?
You absolutely can.
All right, and quick shout out to Kairos. He has really been killing it lately. He's on, like, I don't know if you listen, he's been on, like, every episode of Chill Sonnen for the last, like, 3 weeks. He's always getting featured now. Kairos, you're killing it. Love the energy. Love all that you do. Let's play your question for everyone. Here it is.
My boys, the Fight Geek and Phil. Here's my first question. How about that man, Kevin Lee? People were disrespecting him for years, and he showed up and showed out. Where does he go from here? And please do not say Islam Makhachev. Also, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but I'm saying, what if? If Colby Covington gets past Kamaru Usman, how do you think Jorge Masvidal fares against that fight? I don't see Colby beating Usman, but if it does happen, I do face off.
Oh no. Something horrible happened. Kairos, I'm so sorry.
Well, I think we got the gist of the question, though, right? Who do we want to see Kevin Lee fight next? I want to see him fight Paul Felder. I think that's a great matchup for him.
I don't know why that happened, Kairos. I'm so sorry. Thank you for the question. I don't know why it just cut off like that. Go ahead.
I definitely think, Kevin Lee versus Felder, who's ascending, is a relevant fight in the 155-pound division. Otherwise, I mean, Dan Hooker versus Kevin Lee is a nice fight.
Yeah, and look, to be honest with you, Fight Geek, I agree with you. I really like the Paul Felder Kevin Lee fight. I think Islam is a good fight, although I know that Kairos seems very against that, which is fine. Okay. And I thought he asked a really good question about, what happens if Colby Covington beats Usman. What do you think of Jorge's odds in that fight? And that's a great fight.
He's got a chance, no doubt, but I think.
Oh yeah.
Colby's pace and output would obviously be like kind of the monster to deal with in that fight. I do think that Masvidal does really good with real drama, with real anger and kind of issues with people, whereas I don't think Colby really wears that authentically. So I think that Masvidal would have a mental edge over Colby in that fight. So it'd be very interesting to see. I'd certainly give Masvidal a chance for sure.
Oh yeah, I think he's in with a 40 to 45% chance. I mean, still not favored, but I think he's got a great chance. Kairos, you're the man. Thank you for the question. Sorry that it somehow got cut off audio-wise. But guys, if you don't follow Kairos, follow him at Kairos MMA. That's at Kairos MMA. Dude's awesome. And, okay, do we have any more questions, Fight Geek?
That does it this week, man.
All right. So, guys, thank you so much. If you get a chance, just hop onto the Apple iTunes store. Give the Split Decision Podcast a quick 5-star review. Boy, does it help us. Now, going to hand it off to Fight Geek. Take us away, baby.
All right, guys, as usual, you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Google Play, Stitcher, and more. I'm at The Fight Geek MMA. He's at Phil the MMA Dude. We are at Split_podcast. It's 4 words, The Split Decision Podcast. Thanks for tuning in, and we will talk to you next week. Peace.
Peace.